Welcome to Frontlines. We'd like to welcome our guests from across the United States and Canada, throughout Europe and the Middle East, Australia, South America, and of course in Armenia and Artsakh. Today, Armenia stands at a precarious crossroads, and Artsakh sits in a new and perilous reality. Throughout the Middle East, our Armenian communities are at risk. Perhaps our ability to respond should be linked to our ability to know and to dive deep into these realities. And perhaps that's part of our mission here at Frontlines, to bring you closer to those stories. Nearly a year ago, a little over a year ago, less than 2 kilometers away from Burchamut was a blast that changed history in Lebanon. It was a fire at Warehouse 12, one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. It was August 4th, 2020, and a large amount of ammonium nitrate stored at the port of Beirut, the capital city of Lebanon, exploded, causing at least 218 deaths, 7,500 injuries, $15 billion in property damage, and leaving an estimated 300,000 people homeless. We're going to revisit that day and the impact it had on the global Armenian community, and of course, on the Armenian community in Beirut. And with that, I'd like to pass it on to Garo to introduce our guests.
Thank you, Karnig. Good day in my beloved birthplace, Beirut, Lebanon. Good day in my homeland, Armenia and Artsakh. Good evening in the United States, and good afternoon in other parts of the world. We have two guests today. Unfortunately, our third guests that we had also spoken with, my dear friend Joel Massih, due to some of the ongoing shortages, including electricity, he is unable to join us. But I'm pleased to have two wonderful fellow Lebanese and fellow Armenians, the first of which, age before beauty, is my childhood friend Krikor Ganimian, with whom I attended preschool and with whom I attended middle school and high school. Krikor Ganimian holds a master's degree in finance from the American University of Beirut and a postgraduate degree in international I'm thinking of myself, international commercial trade law and arbitration from Queen Mary University of London. He is also a US certified management accountant and a United Kingdom chartered international commercial arbitrator. He has spoken throughout several universities on a variety of tax, legal, risk, and finance topics. Currently, he is the treasury director of a very well-known British advertising company for the Middle East and Africa. He has also acted as a political and economic risk consultant for multiple private equity firms in the Middle East. He lives in Beirut and is the father of two beautiful sons. Please welcome Krikor Ganimian. Our younger guest, but certainly very well refined and schooled in all things Middle East and beyond, is a former guest of Frontlines Live, Yeghia Tashjian. Yeghia Tashjian is a regional analyst and a researcher. He has graduated also from the American University of Beirut in public policy and international affairs. He has pursued his BA at Ghazarian University in political science. Back in 2013 is the graduate of that class. He founded the New Eastern Politics Forum and the blog in 2010. He was a research assistant at the Armenian Diaspora Research Center at Ghazarian University. And currently, he is the regional officer of Women in War, a gender-based think tank. He has participated in international conferences in Frankfurt, Vienna, Uppsala, New Delhi, and Yerevan, and has presented various topics from minority rights to regional security issues. His thesis topic was on China's geopolitical and energy security interests in Iran and the Persian Gulf. He is a contributor to the various local and regional newspapers, columnist in the Armenian Weekly, and a presenter of the Turkey Today program in Radio Voice of Van. Now, you understand why we have selected our two guests as our initial maiden voyage into diasporan communities throughout the globe, starting with Beirut and probably returning to Beirut in another several weeks to see what we have uncovered today and how we can pursue further and dig deeper into what can be done, how can we can be of assistance, and what's the developments on the ground. Gentlemen, welcome. Karnig, the floor is yours, or the airwaves are yours.
Thank you, Garo. Yeghia, I'd like to start with you. If you can kind of give us an overview as to the impact that the explosion, which everybody is aware of now, amidst the economic and political turmoil in Lebanon generally, what was the impact on the Armenian community, and how has the Armenian community fared 1 year on?
Thank you, Garo and Karnig, for hosting me. First, Beirut blast, it devastated the industrial and the business heart of the Armenian community in Lebanon because it was too close to Marmikhail, Jemaisi, Noor Harjan, and Bush Hamoud areas in Ashafia, where I can say that the Armenian middle class and the most of the businesses were concentrated in these areas. So there were huge material losses. Almost after 1 week after the blast, the Lebanese Armenian Rehabilitation Committee or Commission was established, and first it assessed all the damage, and later through a group of engineers, all these houses and business shops were renovated. I can say around all in all, around 3,000 business shops Armenian were renovated. This is from the material angle. But on human angle, I mean, still we are traumatized. Like, as an example, if we hear voice or sound of fireworks, we suddenly, get up thinking that an explosion happened in our house. Because still I remember the day after blast, how the building shook, how the neighborhood shook. We thought that it was actually the Israelis were bombing our neighborhood. I remember at that period, I was thinking that we don't have Hezbollah in our building, so why the Israelis were bombing us? But because literally we're not aware that we were living next to a nuclear bomb. After 1 year almost, I think the committee had around 15, I would prefer to use the term victims because we were victims of this man-made explosion. But psychologically, especially on the youth level, we are hopeless because still 1 year has passed and we are seeking justice. And I'm not very optimistic about this, as I'm sure that the case will be just evaporated as many cases before because of the corruption. We are living in a political system which is made of literally vampires that they like to suck the blood of the people. And they keep sucking the blood, even though we don't have blood left in our veins. So I'm not optimistic that anytime soon this system represented by the same political elite, they will provide any justice. So the more
I hope we did not lose Yeghia. Yeghia's connection was going to be limited due to similar power lines, limitations, electricity. Have we now lost Yeghia? Is that what it appears to be the case? Can you hear us, Yeghia? Until we get Yeghia back, let me ask the following question, Karnig, if it's okay with you.
Sure.
Yeghia had written, I believe a day or two ago, about emigration. And he has said, and I quote, "You go to a visa service center and you'll be shocked to see dozens of families and fresh graduates." Karnig, Yeghia, are you back?
Yeah, I think I have still a few minutes. This is a depression, seriously, this is a depression. So I'm saying that the more we are pessimistic, the more special fresh graduates like me, they will think to immigrate this country. Yesterday I was applying for a conference visa. There were the Italian and the French visa service centers. So hundreds of people, I can say, literally families, They were just applying for immigration. They don't care what they are living. They don't care that their dollar accounts are frozen in the bank. They are just living Lebanon. So we are living in hell. This is the literal situation, I can say, of the community. The community leadership is doing its best, yes, but also our resources are limited. And also there is another concern, because I'm doing the research about this issue, that the traditional Armenian middle class is evaporating. This middle class, the traditional middle class that was based on communitarianism and helping the community, is evaporating. On the other hand, we are witnessing a rise of a new, I can say, not a middle class, but at least a bourgeois or somehow a group of youth that they are getting, of course, I'm not generalizing, but some of them I know, for example, they are getting fresh US dollars, but they are not engaged with the community. They are not engaged with, for example, the organization, the churches, the political parties. So they are based on more individualism. So the future of the community is at risk, because as we see that as communitarianism is shrinking, on the other hand, individualism is rising.
So for our, thank you, Yeghia. For our audience who is unable to see Yeghia on the screen and hear the voice, for those who are joining us late, oh, there's Yeghia now. Yeah. Yeghia is a regional analyst and a researcher speaking to us from Beirut. And Yeghia, when we lost connection with you briefly, I was quoting what you had written a day or two ago about you going to service centers, visa service centers, and being shocked to see dozens of families and fresh graduates of universities applying for immigration visas, which you labeled it very sad to see Lebanese being humiliated, families broken and uprooted. And you characterized it as we, meaning the Lebanese community and the people in the country, as losing the best of our best in front of embassy doors. Is there an exodus that is going on now? And what is being done on the ground in terms of grassroots civil society to turn the tide? I know there's a new government that is formed or was being formed. There was a new prime minister that the factions agreed upon. What's going on with that? And that question, after you give an answer, I'd like Krikor to chime in with his thoughts, Koko.
Thank you, Garo. Yes, definitely there is exodus, but those who already left and those who are living will live. But the issue is that you have, on the other hand, I mean, almost 70% of the Lebanese population, according to the, I think it was the World Bank report yesterday, they are living under poverty line usually. Even the rich, you know, they are experiencing depression because they are not used to such kind of life, because they're, I mean, the wealth that they had accumulated for decades, now it is stuck in the banks. So they are living in depression. So we are living like a communist regime, that the rich and the poor, they have the same experience, at least being humiliated in front of, I can say, the bakeries, the shortage of internet and everything. On the other hand, I don't think that the civil society or grassroots organization, they can turn the tide, because the system is too complicated and also is dependent on regional arrangements. The problem is that most of the Lebanese leaders, they are thinking that a miracle will come from abroad. The problem is that I always say that the miracle should come from within. It should come from Lebanon, and we should offer our Western partners or to Iran or to the Gulf states that this is the problem and how we can solve it. But there is no national will. I mean, in my academic papers, it's very offensive. I always use the term subjects when describing the Lebanese people as not citizens, because we are not citizens. Our loyalty is not to the state. So this is how we are grown up. Our loyalty has been always to the sectarianism and so on. So when that day our loyalty will become towards the state, then we start realizing that we are active citizens in this country and we can bring a change. At this moment, it is very difficult. Regarding the government, I think still we are working from the scratch. I don't see that in the near future we'll witness a government, unfortunately. My concern is that maybe we are heading towards parliamentary elections, which will be held in March or May 2022. So it means that we still
Did we lose you again, Yeghia?
We may have lost him again, Garo.
Coco, what are your thoughts about this? And then I'm going to defer to Karnig, but I have several questions to you, my dear friend. Go ahead.
Thank you, Garo. Thank you, Karnig, for having me for this conference. Indeed, what Yeghia was saying describes the reality. There is a very mass exodus. I wouldn't say exodus, it's a mass exodus. There is a brain drain here in Lebanon. All the professionals are leaving the country. If you look at the medical sector, all these doctors, once Lebanon boasted to be the medical center of the Middle East, or I mean, everybody from the Arab countries, from Gulf countries, they wanted to come to the American hospital or to other hospitals to get their for their medical needs. Now the tide has reversed. The very qualified doctors are leaving the country. They are going, their destination is the Gulf countries. Of course, those who are able to go to Europe or Americas, they are doing that. Of course, the main reason is that the poverty is increasing because of the devaluation of the currency. So people who were used to getting Lebanese pounds, the equivalent of $15,000, now they are getting probably not more than $500. So, you know, their daily lifestyle has entirely changed. So they are seeking the new markets, new places to raise their lifestyle. As far as the graduates are concerned, this is a widespread, it has become a chronic problem for the Lebanese people. All the graduates, they are not, even though there are no opportunities in Lebanon, first. And the second thing, whenever you ask a graduate, what are you going to do? I mean, he says, I don't want to stay in this country. I don't have any future. The blast, the major impact of the blast, it's not the material damage. It was the psychological impact that left on the people. They have lost faith in the government. They have lost faith in everything. So if you tell them that someday Lebanon is going to be go back to its good days, they would shake their hands and say, you know, you're just kidding me. That's the overall situation here.
And
go ahead, Karnig. Sorry.
I want to ask a question that, you know, I've heard anecdotally people speaking of, and I want to bring us back to the Armenian community for a second. From its heyday, let's say in the 50s and 60s and 70s, perhaps even, to the present day, which is nearly now a half a century later. What is the reality of the ability of this community, the Armenian community in Beirut, to survive into the next decade? Is this brain drain that you said in this exodus, is it impacting the Armenian community differently than it impacts the community as the Lebanese society as a whole? What do you notice are there any differences, and are there you know, what is your view of the prospect of a lasting Armenian community in Beirut?
You know, one of the first things that we noticed in Lebanon among the Armenian community, they wanted to go and settle down in Armenia. Those who were living at the poverty line or probably above the poverty line, they wanted to go. They sold all their assets. They liquidated their businesses and they went to Armenia. And unfortunately, you know what happened in September. That was people, they wanted to settle down in the Artsakh area. They wanted to go to have their businesses, the future in Armenia, but unfortunately, we never expected that. Probably I didn't expect that there is going to be a war in Artsakh, and this is going to have a negative ramification and repercussion on people who plan to go to Armenia. And it's worth to mention that people who went to Armenia, they came back for some reason or another. They didn't see that for the time being they have any future there. That's the unfortunate reality that we noticed among those people who left for Armenia.
If since you're talking about Armenia, let me just say this. In December of last year, Coco, you put on something on social media, which were a collection of words, and they were appropriate. Khaydaragutun, Bedaganutun, Iskandar, Chagevdial Hachtelueng, Pastatucht, Capitulatia, Yerek Aitkure, Aisor Aiskure, Vare Muskure. And a little while ago, Yeghia was talking about the situation in Beirut and how the Lebanese people are looking for the miracle from outside, but they should be looking for the miracle from within. I almost thought for a minute he was describing the Armenian people, the Armenian people of Armenia, the Armenian people of diaspora, who, for whatever reason, by and large, seem to be of the mindset that either the solution for the safety and security and the territorial integrity of Armenia and the safety and security and the determination of rights and self-determination of the people of Artsakh is going to come from somewhere else, from Russia, from the West, from France lately seems to be, the savior of select for a few. Whereas, we have a National Assembly that seems to be more inclined to be throwing mud, depending on if you're in the ruling government, ruling party versus the opposition, or the opposition versus the ruling party. And it is disheartening that many people from Lebanon, or perhaps other parts of the Middle East, who finally decided to go and repatriate to Armenia. This is the situation today. Is there an engagement, and this is after a long rant by me, is there an engagement in Beirut by the Armenian government vis-a-vis its embassy or its personnel, consulate level, with the Armenian community these days to make the conditions more tolerable, or to afford opportunities for people who are, as you said, poverty or below poverty level, if not those who are wealthy and like being in Beirut and have no reason to leave Beirut, to consider going to Armenia?
Unfortunately, it's based on private initiatives. I think after the dissolution of the diaspora, Ministry of Diaspora, I think the link with the Armenian community has diminished or got weaker and weaker. But the tie that was created after the blast was mainly based on private initiative. I know there were some Armenia sent as a government to send their help or medical aids or products to the Armenian community, and there were people from even the Armenian televisions who wanted to cover the situation in Mar Mikhail area, Eshrafi area, Burjamud area. That was very encouraging to see that they are kind of engaging. They are trying to introduce to the other people, the Armenian audience, what is what kind of a life that the diaspora, Armenian diaspora is undergoing through during the blast. But apart from that, we didn't notice any strong involvement from the Armenian embassy in Lebanon.
We understand. I think, gentlemen, you will agree that the blast occurred, I believe it was August 4th, if I'm not mistaken. Indeed. Last year.
Yes, absolutely.
And fast forward to September 27.
Yes.
Some 53 days later, the attack onto Artsakh began. That's no excuse, because if you are a nation, if you are a state, you ought to be able to also maintain your strong ties with the diaspora, particularly after the active warfare subsided. It hasn't ended as far as I'm concerned with the so-called November 9 ceasefire that is anything but a ceasefire. Karnig?
I wanted to ask a question that just to get your view on this, Krikor, and thinking of, Beirut is a different community in our modern Armenian history than, let's say, Cleveland, Ohio is, or even Paris, France, for example. It has a unique place in Armenian history, just like the Armenian community, let's say, in Jerusalem does. I wanted to ask you to make the case for the value of maintaining these communities, not from an individual standpoint, but from a communal standpoint, what Yeghia was discussing earlier. What is the value, I guess, in terms of the Armenian nation as a whole, as a global nation? What is the value that you see in maintaining the vibrancy of these communities, whether it's institutionalized through some direct relationship with the Armenian government, or even on their own? Aside from the fact that these are human beings, that are Armenians that have lived there for generations, but in terms of service to the nation, what values should we as diaspora Armenians be thinking about when we think about these about communities, let's say like Beirut or like Jerusalem, who have both suffered a significant exodus of Armenians? I think that I think the numbers that I'm reading, I think might be too generous, where I'm hearing 140,000, 130,000 Armenians. It might even be generous right now to say that in Lebanon. But what is the value, I guess, in terms of the global Armenian nation of having and maintaining an Armenian identity and an Armenian presence in a place like Beirut?
Beirut, as Garo knows, whoever who has lived in Lebanon 30 years ago, 40 years ago, was the strongest diaspora probably in the world. That was, I'm describing the situation that was 40 years ago. The value is that the assimilation rate, I know there is a globalization. This is having an impact on the youth. As Yeghia was saying, that the youth is not involved in the community life anymore. They are more involved in material life. They have the iPhones in their hands. They want to communicate with other people in the other side of the world. So it's the community life is diminishing in this part of the world. But of course, the major asset of the Lebanese diaspora is that they are able to maintain the Armenian culture, the Armenian language, and nurture this spirit, Armenian spirit, in the young generation. I know it's not the same situation that was 40 years ago, but now still the Lebanese Armenian diaspora is one of the strongest. Regarding the numbers, I know there are different interpretations, but diminished tremendously because of the war, because of the poverty, because of the dire economic situation. But on the other side, the numbers went up after the Syrian war. Unfortunately, in Aleppo, those people who were displaced, they wanted to come first to Lebanon. And of course, it was a temporary phase as far as they were concerned, because eventually they wanted to settle in Germany or Armenia or to other places. To be honest, our political strength or presence is not as strong as it was in the past. This is having the numbers speak. I'm not, probably there are going to be a lot of people who are going to disagree with me, but this is the reality. And of course, Lebanon being a sectarian country, your presence in the parliament is based on numbers. The higher the numbers, the stronger you are. This is one of the negative ramifications of the Armenian, I wouldn't say exodus, because Garo knows that in the 70s, wherever you go, you could find Armenians in the Burchamur area or other places. The major, as Yeghia was saying, there were a lot of industries that were dominated. Actually, literally, they were dominated by the Armenians. Now you don't feel that. You don't have that feeling. I mean, we've become a very weaker, I wouldn't say a weak, but a weaker community compared to what we were in the 70s or at the beginning of 80s.
Well, I'm reminded, Coco, of the 70s when, of course, I was there into the late 70s. It was a country of 2 million inhabitants, 200,000 Armenians. I mean, we comprised 10% of the population. And I recall we had 5 representatives in the National Assembly. And I think we even had a minister or 2. Then I think after I left Beirut, it went up to 7. I don't know what the number is now, but now, from what I understand, the country is what, 5, 6, 7 million inhabitants, and our $200,000 has been sliced significantly, which brings me to my question about my beloved and your beloved Burç, where we both attended, everything from elementary school to junior high school and high school, and we graduated together. It was built on from the ashes of sorrow and post-genocide Armenian community that made its way from the deserts of Deir Zor to Syria to Beirut and to Burç, that they made it to what it was. In my previous trips to Beirut, to Burç, and the last one I believe was, I want to say 2 years ago, 2 summers ago, if I'm not mistaken, 2 or 3. Burç did no longer appear to be mainly populated by Armenian Lebanese families, but it seemed to be already changing its makeup in terms of residents. And I noticed the dwindling of the Armenians in the community, in the larger Beirut community. So my question is, what is the Armenian community like today? Because I dare imagine that if I went there tomorrow and I went to Burç will appear on the surface the same buzzing, energy-driven, but you're in finance, you have extensive, education in all areas that deal with economics. What do you make of this currency being 10 cents on the dollar or the Lebanese pound? It has diminished by 90%. Is that accurate? And if so, how are our people, my people, your people, our compatriots, making their daily bread? Are the community organizations, and I'll wrap it up this way, as strong and as collectively unified as they were in the 70s during the Civil War when I was there, in terms of the traditional 3 political parties, the church, the Armenian Relief Society, the Armenian General Benevolent Union, everybody? Are they all working out of the Ghazarian? How are they taking care of our community these days?
I am very proud to say that our reaction to the crisis was faster than any other community. The political parties reacted very fast because, as you know, the blast was very close to a very big Armenian area. So they acted very faster than any other community. They wanted to rebuild the buildings that were damaged. They wanted to extend economic aid. First, of course, the political parties, then some rich people, they wanted to donate or help or offer financial aid through the Ghazarian. And there was, at the beginning of the crisis or right after the blast, there was a fund devoted to take care of those people who are affected directly by the blast. So I am proud to say that we acted faster than anyone else. We didn't have any political agenda because we didn't say that this Armenian belongs to this party or to another party. I was very proud to see that there was no discrimination there, neither from a political party perspective nor from religious or sectarian perspective. We acted very fast. I know that it needed a lot of financial muscle. I mean, it needed a lot of, because the damages, as Karnig was saying, of course, it varies from one analyst to another. We're talking about $8 to $15 billion, probably. From US perspective, it's nothing, but if you take into consideration the size of the economy of Lebanon, it's a very big number. It's a very big figure. So the Armenian community, I was very happy to see that our reaction was better than the others.
Karnig?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you a question, Krikor, really drawing on your experience as political risk consultant, because I think that it's a question that nags me a lot, and I'm gonna ask it. I have a feeling, just listening to the conversation, our reference obviously to ourselves as a community. I feel as if our institutions, our community leadership, has failed consistently to appreciate kind of these macro political realities, not the local. I feel like we're very good at understanding our place within societies, be it in the Middle East or elsewhere. We work well together in a local setting, in emergency settings. What is your view of our ability really to appreciate some of the bigger issues, the bigger questions, the regional political gamesmanship? I think a lot of us, and I'll bring us back to the third Gharabagh war. I think a lot of us were taken by surprise on September 27th in some respects. And in retrospect now, as we approach a year, my question is this: do our institutions have a proper appreciation of the macro regional risks and political risks that are at play? I always feel like we are more reacting and kind of taking care of our own rather than being a player in the larger political and even military environment. I mean, I think we've seen this over and over again. And as I listen to our discussion about how the Armenian community in Lebanon has protected itself and really reinvigorated faster than the other communities, I wonder if we're kind of stuck in this community outlook, or whether or not we can rise to a different level where we think about it as state institutions, as state players. Garo and I had discussions like this during the crisis in Syria. Now, well, it's ongoing, but a particular crisis involving Armenian communities in northern Syria, where we felt again that it was there was a need for larger state action, whether it's from the Republic or whether it's from global Armenian institutions, to really understand the reality of the political environment from a regional standpoint. What are your thoughts on that?
It's obvious that the concept of ghetto has vanished long time ago. In the past, Armenians were living in a very confined environment. They thought that having an Armenian life was enough for survival. No, that's not the case. That ghetto concept has vanished forever. I mean, people are thinking that whatever happening is in your neighboring surroundings is going to have a direct impact on your life. People have to take into consideration the geopolitical changes that are happening elsewhere. I can give you the example of Russian and Turkish entente in Syria. People said that probably this agreement is going to be only limited in Syria. But on the other hand, we saw the ramifications in Artsakh or other places where, unfortunately, the alliances change, and it is our job to read the politics, to read the geopolitical changes that is happening around us. So the answer to your question is that no, we have gotten out of the shelters, our shelters. The ghetto concept has vanished forever. And we're looking at what is happening not only in our immediate surrounding, but we're looking right at our horizon extended. We know very well what is happening in Americas today. There is a big chance that it's going to have a direct impact on our life. So that's good to say. The level of education is helping our people. The Armenian diaspora in Lebanon, if you see the level of education, or the number of people who are getting higher education is higher than other communities. We are exposed. I mean, if you go to Dubai, if you go to other places in the Gulf, the chances are very high that in the next 24 hours you're going to see you're going to come across an Armenian, or you see that they have formed kind of a small community. So our horizon has extended. We know that what is happening in different parts of the world is going to have an impact on us. In Lebanon, I want to say something. Turkey has its appetites in the Lebanon. So because they wanted, on several occasions, they wanted to rebuild the port. But of course, because there is no government, nobody is taking any tangible actions yet. There are other governments who offered they have. So the Armenian community knows the dangers of that. They know, they recognize that if a major political party, a major political country is going to set foot in Lebanon, it's going to have a different, it's going to have its impact on our community. So we know very well, because people were saying that we're going to invite the foreign powers, so that because we fed up, the locals are fed up with the local government. You know, any help from external help is very much welcome. But again, we have to be very careful about that, whether the French have their appetites, the Americans have their appetites, the Turks have their appetites. So we have to be careful if by any chance the Turkish expansion it becomes a reality. This is going to have a negative impact on the Armenian community here.
You know, I was going to ask a question earlier, but it was going to be directed to Yeghia, but I think you're able to answer it since you've touched upon it just now, Coco. This concept of pan-Turkism, this concept of pan-Turkism that is being advanced by Erdogan, you know, with Turkey now sending, you know, terrorist mercenaries, as far as I'm concerned, into Artsakh, and the world really not saying anything. Who's to say that in the north, in Tripoli, the northern city of Lebanon, which I believe there is already some degree of influence or affinity to the Turkish government, who's to say that that will not spread further? I am aware and mindful of some incidents of protests in the streets of Burchamud by elements that appear to be sympathetic to anti-Armenian policy and philosophy advanced coming out of Ankara. Is there currently, in your opinion, an awareness on the part of the Lebanese, whether it's the Shiite Lebanese, the Sunni, the Druze, or the Maronite, or the other factions, if you will? Is there an awareness and a sensitivity so that you know, they don't wake up one morning and realize that the hand that they thought was coming to extend in peace, as they say in Arabic, was really you know, a hand that was hiding a sword or a knife inside it?
First, I want to say, in the north, you know, those people who have the affinity, they were the remnants of the Ottoman Empire army. When the Ottoman Empire disintegrated in the late 1914 or 1918, okay, these are these people. They were from the Ottoman army, and they stayed there because they couldn't go back to where they came from. So the people say that back in their home they still speak Turkish, and you're going to be surprised. You're going to be surprised that very recently, around between 10 to 20,000 Turkish passports were given to these people. So they offered their Turkish citizenship to these people. Coming to the Lebanese community, based on sectarianism, you know, there is kind of a affinity towards these people and enmity towards these people. It's not whether they are represent a certain country. Depends on which sect you belong to. In Tripoli, it's a mixture. Tripoli is like any Lebanese area. You can find people from different sects. So there were clashes. There were clashes between each other. So yes, there is. The people are aware, and I would say something that they are very active. They are very active, and you see that during the when we commemorate the Armenian genocide. you see, it's not a mere coincidence. They take to the streets and they start to protest against Armenians. It's not a coincidence. I think they are becoming very well organized, and people, they have to take, especially our community has to take note of that. That the 50 years back, nobody was paying any attention when we commemorated the genocide. Now they take to the streets and they want to show that we are faking faking the history, and they say that we, like you, we have affinity towards the Turkey. We have our feelings, so it's better to keep silent, to keep silent about whatever you are going to commemorate. So the danger is becoming bigger and bigger because they are getting more organized. This is something that we have to take into consideration. And we don't have to leave it to chance that someday it's going to dissolve itself. Now, on the contrary, the Turkish pan-Turanism is gaining momentum, by the way. It's gaining momentum in all extensions and directions. And the chances are that it's going to have a snowball effect on our community is very big. So we have to be very careful, and we have to be very meticulous when we are looking at these specific points.
You know, and I really think it's interesting, Krikor, when you were speaking, I was just reflecting on the fact that these are all chapters in this epic story. You know, where the height perhaps was the genocide, and the recent height being the Artsakh War, where there's this effort to eradicate. We can't forget the stories of Kesab less than half a decade ago. Where we hear, and what you're saying is resonating, because this is what we feared in Kesab. This is what we feared in northern Syria, in the towns and villages where there were Armenian populations, for example, like Hamishli and others. This is yet another chapter in this epic story. And what's shocking is, you know, when you say that we have to do something, right, or we have to be knowledgeable about this and awake about these risks and understand these risks, I keep wanting to believe that we need that kind of global awareness, if you will, because if you were to try to identify that we as an institution, clearly we don't have necessarily the state support in these diasporan communities, if you will, as much as we would have liked. And yes, and I'm talking prior to the war, it's not even post-war. In fact, you know, we should, you know, commend a lot of these communities for the support they provided the Republic and the Republic of Artsakh as well during very difficult times, especially from Beirut and other centers of the Middle East, Armenian centers in the Middle East. But I'm wondering, you know, is it time to consider the rights and risks that are the rights and risks of Armenians in the diaspora through a different mechanism? I feel as if the old mechanisms aren't really appreciating how this is all interconnected, how this is all interlinked. There is no reason why what you're telling me now regarding the rise of pan-Turanism in the north of Lebanon, or the risks that are posed at the port, why these things should be new information. This should be information that our organizations and our institutions, or perhaps some sort of central authority, has the understanding of, because we are at risk in these communities. And maybe, Garo, maybe you've got some thoughts on this as well, because I just feel as if, you know, too often we're playing this sort of reactionary game. And I like to say it looks like, you know, we're 8-year-olds playing soccer. You know, the ball is in Beirut and we all run over there, then it's here and we all run over there. And if you really think back, this is all interconnected. It's interconnected in a particular way. And what Krikor is talking about in terms of the rise of organization regarding the Turks and the Azerbaijanis, which has surprised a lot of diasporan Armenians, especially in the West. I know that for a fact, that we were surprised at the level of their organization. It is shocking to me that these things are still surprises. How can we have a surprise that of the risk that's being posed to the Armenian community of Lebanon because of the growth of pan-tourism, right? For example, after Kesab, it doesn't make sense. How is Rameshli a surprise after Kesab? How is Artsakh a surprise after Kesab? I'll be honest with you. I mean, none of this should be a surprise to us, but yet it is. And someplace along our kind of institutional understanding, we're dropping the ball.
Coco, I want your thoughts about this, keeping in mind Karnig's concerns. I read an article, I don't know, a couple of days ago, an EVN report, and it was about it was on the 1 year, commemoration anniversary of the explosion in the port of Beirut, and there were a lot of Armenians that were interviewed in that piece. And one of them said, we're grown accustomed to thinking that we're a minority, we're not a direct target, but at the end of the day, this was a national disaster in Lebanon, and it affected so many communities that you and I walk the streets of every day that are so close to the port. But this one person said that, unfortunately, having been here all this time, at the end of the day, you are not considered Lebanese enough. And then another person said, Armenia is home to all Armenians, but we need to have two homes to be stronger. One here, meaning in Beirut, and one there, meaning in Armenia. I can't help but think, seeing the rise of extremism and nationalism in different forms in parts of Europe, seeing what occurred in the United States, the divisiveness between two political parties, Republicans and Democrats, and it started bringing out elements of hatred to such a degree that, it's only a matter of time where minorities or those whose last names end with YAN or IAN or don't sound, forgive me, white enough, are going to be targeted by those who think America first, America for Americans, and go back where you came from, and rhetoric like that. Doesn't it seem to you that we're way overdue? I mean, think about this. You would think, after the Civil War ended what, in 1990? The way I remember it, 75 to 90. I was only in it for 3.5 years, and it was 3.5 years of hell. I can only imagine what you endured and others who stayed the course. So in 1991, we have independent Armenia. In 1994, we have the Bishkek, is that the Bishkek ceasefire, whatever it was it?
Protocols, yeah.
Protocols, right? You would have thought that the powers that be would have really said, look, thank you for all those host countries that hosted us. We have, a debt of gratitude that we can never repay them. But listen, I mean, we were raised to dream of, Azadanga Hayastan, and we thought of Harappa as some Garden of Eden, and which it is, a mountainous garden at that. But how come we didn't pick up and go? Why? And what would have it changed if 150,000 Armenians went to Artsakh in the 90s post ceasefire? We would have had double the population of Artsakh. I suspect it would have been a different evolution and a different dynamic. If 150,000 Armenians from the diaspora and another 150,000 Armenians from other parts of the diaspora, not from Lebanon, had gone, you would have had 300,000, repatriated Armenians. So when people of my generation here in the United States, we get together and we all talk about buying a home, retiring, living in Artsakh, or living in Armenia, living in Artsakh, but of course Artsakh for us was living in Shushi, and now that's something that has to be rethought and recalibrated, I suppose. Is it too late? I mean, it's never too late. with everything in the Middle East, from Syria and Lebanon particularly, whatever happened to the Armenian community of Iraq, what's left of the Armenian community of Iran, where is the Armenian community of Egypt, Jordan, and elsewhere in the Middle East? I don't know how vibrant they are. What are your thoughts about repatriation?
First, I want to answer to whether there is a discrimination towards the Armenians or not. Actually, there is no discrimination. We're welcome. If we go back 50 years ago, probably half of, if there is a blame, we have to bear part of the blame because we were not able to speak the language. We were not able to communicate with the Arab community, with the Lebanese community. Now you see that, no, you feel that once you get into their culture and you share kind of their lifestyle, you're going to see that, no, they don't have this discrimination. Probably that happened 50, 60 years ago when our forefathers didn't have the linguistic skills to communicate with the people. And going back, repatriating, I think that there are the economic realities prevail. You know, if you don't create job opportunities, people are not going to go to any place. As I said, there was a mass exodus from the Armenian community because they had lost their jobs here. They wanted to find new beginnings in Armenia. But again, because of the war, their dreams shattered and part of them came back. So if you want to have, it's very romantic to say that we want to go and live in Armenia. We want to go live in Artsakh. But at the end of the day, we have responsibilities towards our families. If the government is not able to create jobs for these people, it's going to be very difficult. The second, of course, I haven't tested myself. I haven't come across. People talk about the Armenian taxation system because this is something very dear to our heart. Is Armenia a place where it is easy to start a business? This is the biggest question. Are you going to have unforeseen partners out of nowhere when your business succeeds? This is the second question. I was asking a person, for example, regarding the results of the recent vote. He's a butcher. You know what was his answer? I don't care about the politics. I know that during the previous regime, I was distributing 20 kilos of meat without getting any payments. You know, is this the environment? Is this the environment that we want to have there in Armenia? This is a connotation of what is people take into notice that something is wrong. You have to create the right environment. If you want to have the support of the diaspora, I have seen major business people coming from Americas or South Americas, to be more precise, and they wanted to establish a business. They opened up factories, but these factories didn't last long. Why? There is a question. This is a big question that we have to answer. The answer is very clear. Are you business friendly? Yes, I noticed in the recent 5 years, the startup ecosystem is prospering is getting more prosperous in Armenia. The technology sector, we thought that we are the avant-garde in the technology center, but the recent war proved that no, we have a very long way to go in the technology sector as well. Yes, we are producing iPads, we are producing phones, we are producing rifles, but still we are lagging behind other countries. A big example is there are other, one of them, I don't want to name it now, but there is a country which is a very small country, but they technologically advanced. They are selling their weapons to everywhere in the world, and everybody is respecting them. We could really imitate that if we want to have the respect of the people. It's not enough to say that yes, we were raised in the schools that someday we're going to go to Hayastan. But yes, that after the 1990s, when Armenia took independence, I mean, did we create the right atmosphere? 30 years have passed from the independence day. Were we able to create that welcoming atmosphere, business-friendly atmosphere to the Armenians in the diaspora? I think we have to make a revision of our ourselves as well. It's not that the diaspora doesn't want to go there. They want to go there, but at least they have to have a very decent life in their home country.
Well, I think that there's another element too that now has been added to the equation besides the economic issues and the ability to open a business and being business friendly, and that's the issue of physical security. I think that now the question of physical security is a question which was not a question a year ago. And I think that finding solutions to that question, I think, is going to be just as relevant, because the country that you didn't want to mention, in the early part of the 19th century until its formation in the middle of the century, had a plan, right? And the plan was that from those countries where there was no security or insufficient security for people of that background, those that lived in places where there was security and they were financially well off would fund these individuals to leave Russia and leave Poland and leave various other places and travel to the new lands, right? The new homeland. And they would be funded, and from that those arrivals, and I think a lot of our relatives remember those days. Those that are from the Mediterranean ports in those days, where these immigrants would be coming, funded, by a system, by a plan, and unfortunately. I feel as if we had, I hate to say we've lost an opportunity, but let's be honest, up until the beginning of this war, the security situation in Armenia and Artsakh was better than the security situation in the Middle East, and yet there was no program. As you said, Krikor, it was individuals or individual organizations and individuals making those steps for themselves, and the same thing happened from Syria. And what we didn't have was some sort of institutional plan to make that a reality and to make that long-standing. And I take Garo's point to heart, because it would have, I believe, there would have been a very different beginning and outcome to the current, the last Karabakh war. In fact, to the ongoing war on the borders of Armenia today, had that type of plan been in place. There's no question there. It really is just a reflection. Sorry, Garo. Usually it's you that does the reflecting, but perhaps for me it's been a little bit reflective today.
No, and very timely in light of what's going on. We have over 1,000 soldiers in sovereign Armenia territory, and they've been there since May. And so what your characterization is not reflective. It's actually soberingly accurate. Coco, I only have one more question, and then I'll turn it over to Karnig. I can go on for hours because I miss you, brother. But the question I have is, what's going on with Armenian schools? I mean, you and I are a product of Armenian schools, and we have many dear friends who did well and served, including our classmate Vartuk Balukjan, who is the principal of our high school today. What's the status of the Armenian schools? I know you're at least geographically close and somewhat closer, in contact with the folks over there.
One word: I am not gonna take the bull by the horn. It's a disaster. In terms of
attendance, or in terms of
both the attendance, and of course the recent financial problems are exerting a lot of pressure on people. Armenian schools are not rich. They need financing. They need help. I mean, if there is anything that the diaspora could do, the richer part of the diaspora could do, they could extend. They have to think about supporting these schools. Of course, the attendance is has decreased tremendously. Those schools that were present during our days, now they have combined, became just one school. If we go to our beloved school, Shamyan Tatikian, there were times there were 800, 900 pupils there. Now, probably barely you can see 200 people, 200. Wow. And unfortunately, half of these people, half of these students or pupils are not able to pay the tuition. If you compare it with other foreign schools, I mean, they are a fraction of the tuition, but still, because of the poverty, because of the financial difficulties, the difficulties that our community is facing, they are not able to pay the tuition. And if you don't pay the tuition, you're not going to have teachers. Mm-hmm. If you don't have Armenian teachers, then you lost the spirit of having an Armenian school. You know, that's the problem is widespread across all Lebanon. You know, if you go to the American University of Beirut, you see that all those PhDs with a lot of experience have left the country. Why? Again, we go back to the financial problem, because they were not able to get a decent salary. So they wanted to go back either to Americas, where they came from, or they wanted to find a job in the Gulf countries. The same is in our Armenian schools. For example, were we able to encourage those young generation to study Armenian literature or Armenian language? You know, we didn't have the right incentive. We didn't have the right motivation. Because if they say, why am I going to teach Armenian or do something else if the school it's not appreciated by the parents? If you ask the parents that my son has an Armenian homework, the parents' reaction is that, why are we going? What are we going to use it in the future? You know, it's a language, it's a must, it's our base, it's our the biggest pillar of our existence. So if we want, as Karnig was saying, what is the role of the Armenian Lebanese diaspora? I think having a strong school is the cornerstone of having a strong diaspora. I know the number of attendance is diminishing for different reasons. Migration has had a negative impact on that. The financial situation and the parents, the perspective of parents is very important. They have to make sure that, as you know, we graduated from Armenian schools. We competed in the best universities. We graduated with flying colors. I mean, it's not important to get graduated from a different foreign school. The Armenian schools, they provide the right standards. Our students are brilliant, but it's important to reinvigorate the faith in the Armenian school. And of course, the second thing that we are not talking about is the spread. In the past, we were concentrated in one region, so these schools prosper. Now the Armenian community is spread all over Lebanon or all over part of Lebanon. So parents are saying that we're going to find a school that is close to our apartment or to our living area. This is another thing that is having a negative impact. But of course, the major impact is that the financial situation, we have to make sure that these schools get the right funding and supported by the right people. And we have to, because, you know, there was a saying, our Armenian schools, unlike other schools, they never turned down any student for not paying. I am very proud to say that. Not all the schools are like that. We can ask probably Bartuk. I know Bartuk. She never turned down any student because he or she wasn't able to pay his tuition or her tuition. I mean, but at the end of the day, it comes at a certain cost. They have to survive. And to survive it, they need financial help.
Thank you, Kuba. Karnig?
Well, I think that was very important and inspirational to say, Krikor, because I agree that the Armenian schools have been and will continue to be the foundation of our cultural and ethnic and national identity. It's very important to support those schools. I also think that from those schools come the thinkers that will be able, or have come the thinkers that should be thinking and may be thinking about these issues and trying to structure, you know, the new reality. I think that it's a sad circumstance to think about, I think the word that you used is disastrous.
Mhm.
And I would say that the Armenian community in Beirut is still better off than a number of communities throughout the Middle East. I think that's true as well, still. And that's a really disappointing and frightening reality. And I think that part of what we've done with our program, and I think we should be doing more of these in terms of visiting Armenian communities throughout the world and really trying to connect the dots between some of the themes and the uncertainties that are being faced. I think that the issue of uncertainty has become a real powerful theme in our new Armenian reality. And it's one that we're going to have to think through, and it's one that we're going to have to try to find some solutions to, because as you said, and as we know, we have amazing individuals, we have amazing people, philanthropists, thinkers, industry giants. But I also think that, as you know, people like, for example, Arman Tatoyan, who is able to understand the human rights issues that come from something that perhaps nobody would have thought to be a human rights issue, like a border dispute, for example, and identify those. I think these types of people, their approach is something that we should be mirroring elsewhere too, to try to understand the risks that are posed to Armenians, not as just as individuals, but as communities. What are we losing? We're losing institutional wealth, we're losing security. What does it mean to lose, for example, 90% of the Armenian population of Jerusalem, you know, in 50 years, 60 years? What does that mean? You know, that has real meaning to our survival as a nation, and our dignity. And I think that these are themes that we're going to be revisiting. And with that, Krikor, I want to thank you for joining us. I know that it's very early in the morning there, so we appreciate you waking up for us. And I'd like to pass it on to, unless you have some final words, Krikor, I'd like to pass it on to Garo for his last words.
Indeed, I was very happy to see you and Garo again, even though I didn't see you personally, Karnig, but as Garo said, we were childhood friends. We have fond memories of our life in Lebanon. Indeed, it's a privilege for having me on your platform. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Garo, any last words?
Yeah, oh yeah, I have some last words. Coco is ever the humble gentleman. I am mindful, and I vividly recall Coco coming to our one-room apartment from his one-room apartment where he lived with his family, and I lived in that one-room apartment with my family. And Coco was always prepared in our study group with our late beloved friend Viken Jekmeyan and Coco Kuyumjan. Vahe Kuyumjan, sorry. Oftentimes Vahe would join us. Coco would have a tutorial for us, Karnig. Coco would tell us about every subject, what we needed to know for the exams. Now, whether it was a subject called Tarikh, you know, is history in Arabic, and or the subjects I hated, biology and all this other garbage. But that's why Coco, you know, is and became who he is, and I went to law school. So, you know, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to do it without Coco's early years of pushing. So with that, I want to say this: Coco is a multi-faceted, multi-layered human being. It takes a long time to know Coco. One of the things that Coco is fond of is Armenian literature. So when he was talking about it, it was not a surprise to me, because if you go back and look at Coco's social media, you will not see many postings, but you'll see things like Hayot Lernerum, you know, he'll quote Tumanian, Hayot Lernerum, Parser Lernerum. I took it down. I wanted to bring it up today. Hayot Lernerum, Arnod Lernerum, Hayot Lernerum, Suki Lernerum. And, you know, he posted this Karnig in December after the war of Artsakh. Then he followed it up with another Tumanian quote entitled Hinort Nutyun. And there's a place I'm going with this. Hinort Nutyun, an old blessing, if you will, which instantly, Coco, reminded me of our beloved old late Armenian teacher, Digin Zabel Apelian, a fellow Kesapsi, who passed away recently. She would ask us to recite these things in 10th and 11th grade. And one of them, Coco posted by Tumanian again, and it just really, when I read it at the time, I made a note of it, and I went back to it today. Ժամանակ անցավ նրանք էլ անցան, զվարթ երկերս վշտալի դարձան, ու ես հիշեցի մեր օրը լալիս, թե մեզ օրհնելիս, ինչու ասացին աբրեք երեխեք, բայց մեզ պես չաբրեք. Now, that's a very, very deep writing that, I didn't understand as a teenager. I really didn't. But, when you read another phrase of that today, many decades later, խաղաղություն ցեզ մեր անփախտ բաբեր, ցեզ դանչող ցավը մեզ էլ է բադել, այժմ դխրության թե քեֆի ժամին, մենք էլ օրդերիս մեր զավակներին ցեր խոսքն ենք ասում, աբրեք երեխեք, բայց մեզ պես չաբրեք. Now, that old blessing, to me, it's today's new blessing. We are, I often, find myself telling my daughters, I want you to have the life but unlike the life that I had. And I don't mean the good parts of the life that I've had, the studying, the Armenian community I grew up in. I mean the heartaches and the struggles that we had to go through, both you, Coco, and I, and many of our classmates, particularly even Vartuk Balukjan, and who stayed the course and is continuing the struggle to make the struggle of other teenagers today less costly and less painful. And I'll say it in Armenian. Մենք կորձ ունենք, մենք իսկապես կորձ ունենք այդ օրդությունը վերացնելու, գարիկը այդ օրդության to remove it, so that our children do not tell their children abrek երեխեք բայց մեզ պես չabrek. And it kind of and when I say that, it reminds me of a line from the Sardarabadi Yerk, ուրեմն եկեք կյանքի գոչենք Sardarabadi Yerkը, right? Սերունդներ դուք ցեզ ճանաչեք Sardarabadից. And I hope that սերունդները, our generation, ours, yours and mine, Coco, Karnig's generation, Karnig is younger than us, and the younger generations than Karnig, they get to know themselves, really get to know, why they're here, how they got here, and what it's all about. And that call goes out to everyone, and I'll call upon myself to know myself better. We each owe that to ourselves, to our families, to our ancestors, to our homeland, and to our community. Coco, I miss you, and the first time I get out of the country, that is not just south of the border here from US to Mexico, I'm going to be darn sure to come to Hayastan, Artsakh, but I will not make that trip complete without coming to Beirut to visit you. Be well, and stay in touch. Much love to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Karnig. Thank you, Garo.
Thank you. And to our viewers, we will be coming back in the next few days to discuss two pretty interesting and dangerous developments that those of you who aren't following probably should, and that is the interruption of the water supply to Stepanakert, which has continued for several days now, as well as the deployment of Russian troops in the Voskepar village in northeast Armenia along the border, the new border. So we hope to come back to you in a few days with the discussions regarding those two very important geopolitical developments.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.